Welcome into the Frog Factor podcast. I am your host, Steven Simcox. It's Iron Skillet week, friends. TCU and SMU facing off Saturday morning at 11 a.m. at the Carter, home game for the Frogs. Frogs coming off a 42-21 win over Abilene Christian to get to 2-0 on the season. Usually on Mondays, I would spend most of the show recapping the game on Saturday. I'll do that in the back half of this episode, probably around the 10 to 12 minute mark if you want to skip ahead. We'll talk about the ACU game. I had some qualms with the defense. I've listened and heard a lot of your thoughts, so we'll get to some of that. I rewatched the game. I'll let you know if my opinion's any different. Overall, I feel like it's pretty similar to what I said on Saturday night. If you want to watch the post-game show, I did a live post-game show afterwards. You can check it out here on the YouTube page. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. But I want to start today with an opinion that will probably make some of you, maybe most of you, mad, which is always good to open up as a podcaster, YouTube content creator, and say that at the beginning. I think Saturday is one of the biggest games in the Sonny Dykes era to this point. And I'm not like hot take guy. I'm not on here trying to get clickbait and throwing out wild opinions just for the heck of it. Okay? That's not my style. I realize that even within the conversation around the playoff, if you lose on Saturday, you can still make the playoff. TCU could still run the table in the Big 12, lose a game or two in the Big 12, get to Arlington, win the Big 12, and be part of the college football playoff. It's not going to eliminate you from anything. It's not a conference game. I get all of that. But I still believe in the regular season, aside from maybe the Texas game in year one on the road, that was a big win in Austin, I think just from a mentality standpoint. Last year when you traveled to Utah after the bye week, when you got embarrassed by Houston, that was a big deal. Felt like things were kind of teetering. Maybe they weren't internally, but as an outsider watching things unfold, I was starting to question the direction the program was growing. I know a lot of people shared that same opinion. They were at least able to stop the bleeding and then recovered really nicely and played well in the back half of the season. But the reason why this game is so important in my mind, TCU went to Dallas last year and got embarrassed. Like, there's no way around it. They blew a tire, played poorly, turned the ball over. Defense couldn't stop anybody. They gave up 66 points. Now, there were a couple of pick sixes in there, so it wasn't all on the defense, but the defense had a tough day. Offense ended up scoring over 40 points and putting up some decent numbers, but it was never really that close. They got beat pretty soundly by SMU. And at the time, it felt really embarrassing. Looking back on it, I mean, SMU ended up being a playoff team. I don't feel like we realized how good they were. And TCU recovered nicely. But, you know, I mean, if the Houston game was rock bottom, SMU was right there with it. So TCU has a few opportunities this year to go on sort of a mini revenge tour. It starts with this home game against SMU. They play Willie Fritz and Houston on the road. By the way, the Cougs are 3-0. Willie Fritz is a good coach. They just beat Colorado and looked pretty good doing it. They'll play Baylor later on this season in a game that I think will have Big 12 championship implications and will be an opportunity for them to avenge that loss on the road last season in the final seconds. But it starts with this game against SMU. And I know that for the past 2 decades, really for as long as I've been a TCU fan, started following the team around the 2009 season. For as long as I've cheered for TCU, I have known about the history of the rivalry. I've known historically it's a big deal. It's one of the longest rivalries in college football. But for a long time, it was honestly kind of a nuisance game for TCU, right? Like, TCU fans looked at it like, if we win, it doesn't really move the needle for us a lot. We have to go to Dallas every other year. And on occasion that we lose, which happened every once in a while, it was an embarrassing loss. And it felt like SMU's Super Bowl. And so I think TCU fans, for the most part, not everybody, I realize I can't speak for all TCU fans out there, but a lot of TCU fans, especially younger TCU fans, held this belief about SMU of like, they're not really a rival. We call it a rivalry because historically it's a rivalry, but in the here and now, it's not. There's a meme that gets passed around the internet. It's always good to describe a meme on your YouTube show. But there's a meme that around the internet from Mad Men where one of the characters tells Don Draper, "I feel sorry for you," and Don Draper says, "I don't think about you at all." And I believe that's how TCU fans have sort of approached SMU for the past couple of decades. But you know what? Whether we like it or not, SMU's figured out how to compete at a high level. They made the playoff last year. I think this SMU team's pretty good. I realize they lost to Baylor, had Baylor dead to rights, ended up giving that game away. But I still think they're a good team. And it's the last iron skillet. So, in my mind, there's a couple reasons why this is a huge game for Sonny Dykes in this program. Number one is it gives you a chance to sort of reset and be like, okay, this team that took us to the woodshed last season, we bounced back and we got a victory. We restored order. We showed that we're still the better program. The other reason is, let's just be real about it. TCU canceled this series. I understand why they did. They were tired of going to Dallas every other year. They wanted an extra home game, guaranteed every season. They wanted more games at the Carter, more money for the football program, more opportunities for season ticket holders to sit in their seats and watch the team play, for students to come to the games and watch the team play. That's why they did it. And because of some of the reasons I mentioned earlier. For a long time, it was a pretty lopsided, one-sided matchup. And honestly, it didn't really behoove TCU to keep it. Now, I think things have changed in the past couple of years with SMU moving to the ACC. Now, a lot of that hinges on what happens with North Carolina or Florida State or Clemson, and if any of those schools decide to jump ship and set realignment and chaos again. But at the moment, it's a Power 4 game. TCU canceled the series. They don't want to play it anymore. And as much as I would love for them to replace that series with home games against LSU or Notre Dame or Ohio State or teams like that, so far, I think the only replacement they've scheduled is a home game against Arkansas State. And my guess is that's the type of opponent they're going to bring to Fort Worth on a yearly basis. They will get into this rhythm of one Power 5 team, Power 4 team, one FCS opponent, one Group of 5 opponent. 2 or 3 games are at home. In some years, all 3 games are at home. And then you trade off road and home games during conference play. That's my assumption. So I get it. I get why they're doing it. And I don't even really care about, like, the national media is clutching their pearls about it. Like, oh, this is just another example of why college football has changed so much and why we don't like it. It's become less regional and all these historic rivalries that we love so much are going away. That's a fine opinion to have. If you're a TCU, I will listen to you. If you're a TCU fan and you think that, I will hear you out. I think that's a valid opinion. The reason why I don't give credence to like somebody at The Athletic that writes that is because the Iron Skillet's been around for years and nobody's really covered it until recently. It's a game that TCU has kept on the books for a long time. And the only reason being because of the tradition behind it, the rivalry that it is. And now they're moving on from it and they're getting criticism. And I've told you before, I think the game should keep going. But I think it's disingenuous for all these national media folks to jump on board and suddenly say, well, this is such a bad decision by TCU, and it's just another example of what's wrong with college sports. I don't pay attention to that. If you're a TCU fan that believes that, fine. Bottom line is TCU canceled the series. They went and got their coach in Sonny Dykes a few years back. Do not let this team get all-time bragging rights on us. And I think the game will come back eventually. I don't feel like this is the final. We say the final. It's the final for the foreseeable future. I believe it'll come back eventually. But you know how far in advance these games are scheduled in college football. It's not like basketball and baseball where you make your schedule every year. I mean, this could be the last matchup for the next decade. I don't think that's a crazy thing to say. And so for TCU, that's your prerogative. You had your reasons for getting rid of it. You had your reasons for moving on. You better go win. You better go prove why it's not worth it for you to keep this up and get a victory over SMU. And from a team standpoint, this is an opportunity to get out there and avenge what happened last season. It was a mess, man. I don't have to recount it, but I will. You guys watched it. SMU goes down and kicks a field goal. Josh Hoover fumbles on an option play on 4th and 1. Scoop and score. Punt return for a touchdown. It was 17-0 before you could even blink. Your head coach got kicked out of the ball game. You rarely see that in college football. Sonny Dykes got run out of the field because he was arguing with the referees so much. It was a low point for this team, a low point for this program. And thankfully, they clawed their way back. But all of this progress that you've had over the last calendar year or so, the wins against teams that you feel like you should beat, you go on the road against North Carolina, and you don't make the same mistake you made a couple years ago against Deion Sanders. You mentally are ready to go and you win that ball game. Now go handle your business against SMU. Please. For our sake, for the people listening to this podcast, I have to interact with SMU fans. Go win one for us, guys. And just for the sake of the team, too, get to 3-0 in non-conference play and travel to Tempe on a Friday night with some momentum by pulling off a win. It's a big game for Sonny Dykes. It's a big game for this program. You got to come out with more focus and intensity than you did against Abilene Christian. Speaking of that, how do we feel about this TCU defense and just the overall performance against the Wildcats on Saturday night? That's coming up here on the Frog Factor podcast. Okay, so I rewatched the ACU game. TCU won 42-21. And let me start by saying they won last night. They won convincingly. It was 42-9 early in the fourth quarter. The first team offense was basically perfect. They had 6 drives. They scored 6 touchdowns. Josh Hoover continues to just look, he's in control. And when I say that, I don't mean he's not making really great throws or plays that wow you. He throws a great ball. And he had a few last night that were like, okay, that's a plus throw. Big time throw. I think is what they call it at Pro Football Focus. The best one of the night in my mind was on the run. He dropped it in the bucket to Eric McAllister in the corner. And unfortunately, Eric bobbled it as he was going out of bounds. If there was one thing about the offense, I wouldn't even say it's a problem. I wouldn't use the word problem because they're productive. And to this point, I haven't seen the lack of targets affect Eric's effort. He did a nice job blocking again last night. He seems to still be very engaged. It's just interesting that he hasn't gotten more opportunities. The flip side of that is Jordan Dwyer's a really good player, man. He's a really good wide receiver, and he's showing it. Yesterday, I thought you saw some more from Joseph Manjack. Ed Small came in. Apparently, Jordan Bailey got banged up on a kickoff return, according to Sonny Dykes, and so that allowed Ed the opportunity to step in and make some plays and do some different things, which is cool to see. But Josh is playing at a high level. I don't mean to minimize it by saying he's in control. I just mean the dude looks like he knows exactly what he wants to do when he gets the ball in his hands. He doesn't look fooled by the defense. He had a few throws that were misses last night. I know he had one over the middle, I think to Dwyer, where he had him wide open. He just airmailed it. And had another one like that, maybe on the same drive. But he's not making bad decisions. And yeah, it's ACU in North Carolina, but Sawyer Robertson, who's also a really good quarterback, he threw 3 picks against Stanford yesterday. Like, it can happen. He's just not allowing it to happen right now. Obviously, a big test starting this week with SMU and a defense that's very aggressive. And maybe they can fool him. We'll see. But defensively, that was the story of the night in my mind. They shut Abilene Christian out in the first half, which is the most important thing. Now, there were 2 missed field goals, so you could argue that they at least gave the opportunity to allow 6 points on the board. They didn't force a 3 and out all night. They weren't dominant by any means. They gave up over 400 yards total offense. I think 450, around 450. Stone Earl played at a high level. Now, you throw all the caveats out there. They were subbing a lot of guys in and out. Abilene Christian had some athletes. I think Stone Earl is a good QB. I feel like this was a better team than the Long Island team they played last year. It was a different cast of characters, but Abilene Christian did take Texas Tech to the wire last season. A few years ago, I remember they put up a lot of points on Baylor. They're a good FCS team. The thing that gave me pause last night, and even this morning, I just thought the corners had a really rough game, and it was everybody. And this is a veteran group there. It's not like Devondre McGee was in there late. Okay, you would expect a guy that hasn't had a lot of live reps to maybe struggle. But it was Avery Helm, who's returning from a season-long injury. It was McIvor. It was Canada. And it was 50-50 balls. Someone pointed out, someone who knows the team well and knows football better than me, pointed out to me that one positive thing, it wasn't coverage bust. It wasn't like guys were just running free and nobody was around them. And the other team makes plays, right? Like Abilene Christian has some dudes and they went up and made some plays. I just thought the technique was off. A lot of, helmet straight into the receiver's chest and not turning your head around. And it looked like a mess to me at times. There was a lot of reaction to that. I want to get to some of it. Mando Frog hit me up on social media, said after watching the game, I think Andy called the dogs off up front. If you watch, you see the change from pressure to contain. He wanted to test the secondary in one-on-one matchups and see what needs to be corrected over the next few weeks. Well, I think he certainly didn't unleash his full blitz package last night, right? Like, it was pretty vanilla. I believe they called the dogs off in the sense that they were making wholesale substitutions along the defensive line early in the second half, earlier than I would have. I feel like your first couple drives in the third quarter, you need to have your ones out there just to establish, like, okay, we're locked in, we're focused. Once you see what you need to see, you get them out of the game. When Ansel Denbu and Marcus Deal were not on the field, it was noticeable in the run game and the pass game. Guys were getting pushed around. So that's something to watch. I agree. I think they played pretty vanilla defense. I don't think that's an excuse for everything that we saw on Saturday. But I see your point. Maybe they just took their foot off the gas a little bit. That's human nature, but that's also not really something I want to see from a veteran-led team like this. I have some higher expectations for them, whether that's fair or unfair. Chad says, buckle up, folks. If we win games, it'll require the TCU offense to put up a lot of points. They look like they can do that, though, with the running game this year. I mean, they could find themselves in some shootouts for sure. I would also mention early in the year last season, this defense struggled a lot, but then they started to put things together. And I think that possibility is out there, right? But yeah, I could see, especially this week against SMU, it being a game with a lot of chunk plays and you're sort of holding on for dear life. Landman said they lost their intensity after the halftime. Sure, they did. I mean, there wasn't a ton of pressure on Stone Earl in the second half. There were plays where he got a lot of time and scrambled out and found guys in the back of the end zone where you're like, man, I feel like somebody could have put a stop to that. And they just simply didn't. Big Easy said he was very disappointed with the defensive effort. They played soft and they didn't look like a playoff team. I think it's a little early to say whether or not they're a playoff team. Effort was questionable at times. And while, yeah, you expect that to a certain extent in this type of game, giving up 2 late touchdowns, I know there are a bunch of subs out there. And even my pal Matt Jennings was like, he said, I don't think giving up a couple scores in garbage time to FCS team is a big deal. I know what you mean, but I just think if you're going to be a great team, does that mean you're firing on all cylinders 100% of the time? No. But I would have liked to have seen more intensity, more effort in the fourth quarter. And yes, you have to clean things up. And maybe it'll end up being a blessing in that you've got some things to watch on film and say, hey, we can't allow this to happen. We have to be better. We have to play better. We have to play more disciplined. And if we don't, then we're going to have a tough time. SMU, 11 a.m. on Saturday. I'll be back Wednesday and Friday with shows. I'll do a post-game show on Saturday. Might be a little later than usual after the game because of youth soccer. But we'll have post-game reaction after the SMU game. Big game for Sonny Dykes and company this week. I believe that. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Comment on the show. It's the Frog Factor Podcast. Thanks for listening, everybody.